Weekly update. Extreme close-up. Friday, June 18th. Letter from R.W. in Stanstead, Quebec, dated January 21st, 2021. Dear Mr. Sim, I read from your website last year, I think, that you were offering your Cerebus graphic novels at rates for the poor and interested. I am ashamed to admit that I am such a person. I would certainly appreciate the offer if it is legit. And I feel I owe you an explanation because by March 1st will be a 54-year-old stranger asking for your help. Thus, at the risk of boring you, I will tell you a little bit about how I came to live in a 230-year-old border town so impoverished. How impoverished is it? So impoverished it cannot afford the one horse it needed to have kept up its charter. Good one. I always wanted to be a writer, but along the way I shipped off my desire to Someday I'll, and I convinced myself a business career was more lucrative than writing. Many people counseled me, though Tor Books did offer to publish a story I felt stole from the Maltese Falcon. Alas, I was too young to appreciate the offer. I had religion telling me that my games, my music, and then my writing were all against the God my father and I loved. So I chased business. It was a long, ultimately fruitless chase, and all my classmates raced alongside of me, particularly my female contemporaries. At this time, the end of the 1980s, you were painted to be some kind of misogynist, so you know what I was dealing with better than I can articulate in hindsight. I wanted to be married to someone who could help me find answers in life, so by 34 years old, after having worked hard at my business career, I was ashamed of my life and sleeping through the phone book, hoping some woman would prioritize family and honest partnership over career. I left Canada in search of a wife because I thought feminism was a Canadian phenomenon. I sought women who still consider marriage to be honorable. Your reported views on feminism back in the 1980s seem rather tame compared to my own thoughts these days. It took me 4 years to find the woman I would marry, and another 6 years on top of that for her to deign to marry. At that time we had a 2-year-old daughter who is now 7. I had lost everything by then, and I was totally dependent upon my wife and we on my parents-in-law for basic survival. My late mother had sold everything I owned to an estate buyer years before, and I had lost all my financial resources living in Poland without income. My wife felt empowered by her subsistence wages because I was in such a losing position, and her parents bolstered her. I began teaching my daughter 1950s values of North American culture, along with homeschooling her in the subjects of English and maths. I am proud she is quite prepared for her age, despite the deeply embedded participation culture of the USSR, where nothing you do matters for anything. I see similarities between what I saw in the USSR prior and after, quote, the fall, unquote, and what I see now in Canada. Thus, the grandparents, convinced there is no future in Poland, pushed me to bring my daughter home to Canada. And the end of the story is that I find myself in my home province of Quebec, living in a small town that became so small it lost its charter. It's not a joke. But I also have the strength of being older and of having real life experience to write from, which I did lack at 19 in 1986. Another plus is my lack of internet, absence of TV, and reliance on writing letters by post and using a rotary telephone for communications. Over the years, I have collected a modest but superb library of books to help me with research for setting in the world I am creating, within which I tell my tale. My creative writing has certainly suffered from the lack of practice during the past 35 years, but it has not deteriorated so much I cannot write better than the writers of Game of Thrones any day of the week. No longer encumbered with morality problems to displease my God, I am free to express my gifts with confidence. We arrived to a small one-bedroom in Stanstead in October. We live on a mix of welfare and family allowance. I am homeschooling my daughter. She is practicing her writing and alphabet phonics right now. Next month I will be back to studying books from my personal library and my journal writing. Presently I am just finishing the last of the government paperwork, which will free up my mind considerably when completed. We obviously live a penurious life. My wife is unable to join us and likely will not, as she is not in a desired category of refugee. I am happy to be husband, wife, parent, teacher, welfare lackey, and writer because I am able to turn my life around and offer a better future to my daughter than Poland can offer. I am isolated, of course. I have been away for so long that I no longer have friends, and the one school, quote, friend, unquote, I do have has lived a life shackled by the feminist lies we were taught in school to worship. I have seen how his kids have turned out, which is repugnant to me. The ideological chasm between us will never heal and prevents us from continuing as friends. I would like to return to my thoughts to when I did not have all these responsibilities, to a time when I was untroubled by what I see happening to Canada now, to a place where what I read inspired me to write rather than infuriated me with no-talent hacks. There is nothing I can do about my isolation, but I hope you may help me to return to my inspiration. Whatever the help you may offer to me, sir, I have come to appreciate you. So I am humbly asking, please, would you generously part with Cerebus graphic novels for me? They could find no better home, I promise. Yours sincerely, R.W. And my answer was, no, forget about it. What are you talking? No, I'm just kidding. Rolly and I bundled up some Cerebus graphic novels and sent them out to him, and we have confirmation that the books did arrive. So there you go. Weekly update for this week, and I hope we'll see a bunch of you again next week.